One of the things that I liked that Andy Stanley said was that sometimes the most compassionate thing we can do for a friend is to pull away. It can be a kind of wake-up call for them. And it's about staying healthy ourselves so that when they need us, and they probably will, we'll be in a position to help. There's no doubt that the friends that we keep influence and help determine the quality of our life. That's why the voice of conscience inside of us often sounds like someone we respect. It might sound like your father or your grandfather, grandmother, or your mother. It might be a boss or someone else who you respect. One of the ways that we learn to hear the voice of conscience inside of us is to listen to the voices that we respect outside of us in the world and think, what would they do? What would she say? Of course, in order to develop guardrails, we also have to determine what it is that we know that could steal our future. Are you susceptible to making bad financial decisions? Are you tempted by illicit sex or drugs and alcohol or gambling? I should look up when I say all this so that nobody thinks I'm looking at them. Are you prone to lying? Or shopping or eating for emotional comfort? The canals that I see people fall into most are usually around sex or money or addiction. And nobody's too educated or too wealthy or too connected to avoid these problems. A lot of these stem from a lack of a sense of self-worth or a lack of a sense of a higher meaning in a person's life. Recovering alcoholics and people who deal with other addictions, they know that helping others who are struggling with the same addiction is one of the important ways to maintain one's sobriety. Because there's something about service to others that helps us to connect to our own worth, our own value to others and to the world. And when we feel self-worth, we're much less prone to temptation. The experts say, and I agree, that sexual intimacy is sexual infidelity is rarely about sex. It's really emotional intimacy that people are usually looking for, but they don't know how to find it in healthy ways. They don't realize it, and I know they'll argue this point with me, but it's really intimacy that we're looking for. Whatever our temptation or danger zone is, one of the keys is to build up some kind of guardrails that warn us before we get close to falling over the edge. What are the warning signs that tell you, don't go there, don't do it? Now is the time to reach out for help. The good thing about having these guardrails is that they make us feel guilty before we've done something that we'll regret, right? If it's a good guardrail, it stops us before and warns us before we go over the edge. For example, let's say you have an addiction to online shopping. I see people elbowing each other out there. Just don't raise your hand. But, so that whenever you start shopping on the internet and you start surfing around to shop, you end up wasting way too much time, you get nothing done, and you spend way too much money, which makes you end up with more debt, more unreliable, and more filled with regret and shame. Now, I'll use the shopping addiction, but feel free to translate it into gambling online, looking at porn online, or playing games incessantly online, or whatever addiction that you may know of that causes people to waste inordinate amounts of time and money and makes them, when they're done, feel shameful and guilty and bad about themselves. But I'll stick with shopping. A compulsive shopper might have a guardrail that says, I'll maintain a personal standard by not shopping at all online. Then if they find themselves shopping online, they know that they've stepped over the guardrail. Or they might say, I'll let myself go online only when there's something that I know I need. I'll look for that one thing and I won't browse beyond that. And as soon as the person starts to waste time shopping and browsing beyond something that they need, they start to feel a bit guilty because they know that they've stepped over and they're breaking one of their own rules that they've made. And that's the beauty of guardrails, is that it warns us before we fall over the edge. We start feeling guilty before we get to a place that we might regret for a long time. It's kind of like those rumble strips on the side of the highway that make the whole car vibrate when you get too close to the other lane. And if we're determined, and we've determined our guardrails in advance, and we've committed ourselves to them, then if we heed the warning, then we can avoid a lot of regret and a lot of potential disaster in our lives. Now, the idea is not to blindly trust our culture to set our guardrails, because we know that our culture gives many mixed and misleading messages. And not to become so excessive that we buy into the one-size-fits-all puritanical approach to life where we forgo many pleasures while judging others and often acting hypocritically. It's about setting personal standards for our life that help keep us free from drama and trauma. It's about cultivating and listening to your conscience. It's funny that being a responsible spouse, partner, parent, business person, or friend always feels good in the long run. Always feels good at a deep level in the long run. In other words, we never regret our guardrails. We only regret ignoring them. What the online shopper, gambler, or porn addict knows is that when you feed a temptation, it doesn't satisfy the temptation. It only feeds the desire for more. In other words, it's futile to try to satisfy dangerous desires by feeding them. Having an affair doesn't help get it out of your system any more than having a drink helps an alcoholic. In fact, acting on these impulses often softens our resolve, which makes it easier and more likely that we'll do it again. So having personal standards that we set for ourselves in advance and commit to sticking to in our lives turns a person into a person of character and a person of integrity. It doesn't mean we don't have temptations. It doesn't mean everybody doesn't have different temptations in their lives. But it helps give us that sense of self-worth, which is really, underneath it, what we're really all looking for with these behaviors anyway. So even if you have the freedom or the power to do anything you want to do, you still choose to do the right thing, the thing that adds real value rather than regret to your life, the thing that enhances rather than steals your future. Of course, anyone is always free to believe whatever they want to believe. But here at All Souls, we teach people to listen to their conscience. It's an idea that stems from the conviction that everyone is created in the image of God, which means that everyone has worth and everyone has wisdom if we just take the time to appreciate it and plumb the depths of who we really are. May your guardrails keep you on the path of great wonder and purpose and growth. It's good to be back. I missed you. I love you. Amen.